Experience hospitality the Northwest way at the Everglades Hotel. Located on the banks of the River Foyle, the Everglades Hotel is just minutes from the centre of Derry, Londonderry, with free on-site guest car parking. Whether you're here for a family meal, a big celebration, or simply a peaceful retreat, will make your experience as memorable as the sights in the city. Visit Everglades Hotel Derry for accommodation bookings, the latest menus, live shows and events, and much, much more. See you there.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Gaelic Lives. It's a preview show ahead of week 7 in the National League, where whatever has left to be decided will be decided. Thankfully, I'm joined on the line by Paul Finlay, a man who knows an awful lot about the National League, an awful lot of it, maybe round 7 from the Monaghan side of things. Paul, you're very welcome and thanks for jumping on.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, it's good to be with you.
And I suppose, very generally, first of all, what have you made of the last 6 rounds? And, without digging too deep into the rules, what have you made of sort of maybe more generally about where the game is?
Yeah, well, it's definitely been interesting, and there's been a lot of talking points, obviously from week 1 to where we are now. A lot of frustration, I think, on the behalf of the managers, the inter-county managers. An awful lot for people to get their head around. I think there's still a certain group of people that maybe just haven't grasped the rules fully, and you still hear the odd question, "What was that for?" Being asked, whether you're sitting beside somebody at a game or even watching it on TV. So there's just so much going on. But for me, the main thing is it's positive. It has to be positive. Like I'm not hearing anything other than positivity coming from players, which is the main thing. I think if the players are enjoying the game and enjoying what the game looks like now and the changes that have been brought in, then that's it. I mentioned frustration on behalf of managers. I get that and I understand it, but for me, we're definitely looking at a better game. It's more fluid, it's faster, there's more scores, there's more all-round entertainment for those watching. So yeah, as I say, it's really positive. Fair play to the players for putting on the display that they have today. It all down through the divisions, the scoring's been very high. We've seen some really entertaining games, and it bodes well for going into the championship.
And obviously, the short term, Paul, is about how teams are dealing with it now, and as you say, coming into the championship. But long term, in your opinion, does it just change the entire outlook of coaching as a whole in order to change this more than the short term thing?
I'm not sure that it changes the whole outlook of coaching. Like we're still talking about the basic skills, like maybe at the highest level, and as you get into analysing teams and how to stop teams, maybe that's potentially you're looking at having to dream up a different way of defending. But everything I'm seeing is all the basic skills. Like you're going back to a contested kick out in the main, and you're going to be coaching people to perform that art of the high catch and moving all over the field, kicking it right and left. All of those things are going to be rewarded for the best teams. So I don't believe that it's going to change how we need to coach our children or things. I think there still is question marks over how it'll all play out in the club scene. I think it's going to bring a lot of pressure on club referees, and I think everybody's just going to need to be patient and show a level of restraint and discipline more so than ever, to try and allow these new rules to find their place. We have all the top referees, in charge of all the games so far in the National Football League. They have they're all mic'd up with their linesmen, even their umpires at this stage, so that they have all the aids to try and help them through the process. But when you go to the club game, which they're all going to start now, they've started at the weekend. I actually didn't hear our own club were playing in the Junior B competition, so that was the start of it. I didn't hear anything about the reffing of or whatever. But I do feel it's going to be difficult for referees to just bring everything that has been thrown at them into play, and that's potentially something that will have to be reviewed as we go. But just in the main and holistically, I see it as positive. I think we needed change. We needed something to happen to free the game up again, and these rules are certainly going a long way towards that.
Would you love to be running out at Clonus at the weekend with a Monaghan jersey now that the game looks a wee bit more different than maybe the one that you left?
I would. I definitely would. It would have been brilliant to get a chance to, because definitely, when I finished towards the end of my inter-county career, it was definitely that whole defensive, everybody get behind the ball was in full swing, and it was difficult. Like you couldn't kick past the ball into the forward line because you know what was being met with. So yeah, I definitely would like it. I'm not sure I would have been able to keep up with the pace of it, Michael, to be honest with you. But yeah, the 2 pointers and the all round maybe space that's available to forwards now, it definitely is appealing. And I think as a forward, I think everybody is enjoying that aspect.
Yeah, I noticed from reporting in games, you look up at the scoreboard clock and you realise, there's still 20 minutes to go. The games are that wee bit longer, so I can imagine being out in the middle of it. There seems to be a longer in play time during games, and especially as they talk about that middle eight type player. So it must be very unforgiving if you are the man who's going box to box. It definitely has to be, because you don't have any break.
It's standing out, the attritional, the duty on the players now, what's been called, and I think it was Jim McGuinness or some of them, talked about, having the need for extra subs. Like that's something that should be slotted in if it hasn't been already, just to allow, get new players in and more players in just to finish off games, because it's having a huge impact. And I think the stronger squads are probably going to come to the fore as we go through the year, in terms of who can finish the games the strongest. So it's tough. It's tough. And again, it's another interesting one to see how it develops onto the club scene. You're coming a level or two down, and as you go down through the whole grades, what's the impact? But it should be all relative, and we still should be looking at a better game.
And we'll look ahead to this weekend's games. We're obviously an Ulster-based podcast here, and I suppose Division 1, there's a lot of things are already sorted out, Paul, but one that's not is Tyrone are at home to Dublin, and Tyrone, I think, can potentially still be relegated on 7 points. So there's an awful lot at stake in that game. And obviously Dublin have had massive turnover in players as well, Paul. So what's your thoughts on sort of, I suppose, with Tyrone, and you would obviously know the Malachy side of things as well?
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. It's hard to call. Tyrone probably find themselves in a position that they wouldn't have maybe wanted to be, and of course they'd rather have a couple of points more at this stage, and probably should have. But it's just like every game in Division 1. Like, anybody can beat each other. Being at home is always a decent advantage. I feel it's worth a couple of points in itself. And Tyrone getting the win against Donegal last weekend will give them a little bit of confidence, and there'll be a pep on their step in training this week. So with everything that's on the line, I'm thinking that Tyrone, with that wee bit of a shot of confidence, and some, obviously the Canavan brothers and the Errigal Kieran contingent solely, fully back in play. I would expect them to have a strong performance this weekend. Dublin, I think they need to win to be guaranteed of getting to a league final. Probably one of the teams that do want to get to a league final. Given that they're what they're going to face in Leinster, and maybe they have a longer break than some of the teams in Ulster, so they'll definitely be coming, to Omagh, trying to get the win. But for me, the home advantage, and with Tyrone's maybe fortunes just maybe having taken a turn for the better against Donegal, I think that'll give them something, and they could squeeze a win out of this one this weekend also.
And Paul, this game here, like I remember a couple of years ago tuning into the final Sunday of the league, and I think it was the day that that Monaghan actually relegated the Dubs on the last day. What's the mentality for a player going into the last day when you actually don't really know really what's going on anywhere else? Does the likes of Amaliki and Ryan Porter have to say, like, is it a different focus? Is that how it works?
It's while there can be so much going on, you can't think of anything other than the performance yourself. And I think you have to get yourself into a headspace of we can only look after what we can look after. If we go out and do what we can do, then we have to accept whatever the outcome is. We definitely down the years have been in a couple of tight corners, and always able to get that performance on the last day, and probably luck was with you on some occasions where you got the win, but then you were relying on something else happening, to make sure that you stayed in the division or whatever. So I think that's, as a player, that's all you can focus on, and the focus for the players going into the game. Of course, it takes a little bit up of your headspace of the week preparing, but when it comes to the game, you just have to go out, and if half time you might be getting a snippet of what's going on in other grounds, and then you just have to get your head back in the game again and just focus on what you have control over. So in the world of the inter-county footballer these days, there's so much psychology and there's so much time put into preparing mentally, physically. All of these things are checked off, and the lads are fully focused on just delivering a performance on that given hour or an hour and 10 minutes, and they have to run with then whatever the outcome is after that.
And then it's very different too, because there's no such thing as a comfortable lead anymore. Like if you think back to Derry and Kerry and Celtic Park, where there's just everything changes inside about 60 seconds. So the sort of the soccer Saturday scenario just would be, I don't know how we're going to keep track of it on Sunday, but as you say, the players literally have to just look after numero uno.
Absolutely. There's nothing else that the players can do other than look after what they have control over. But you're right, Michael. It's the one thing that I'm struggling to get my head around. I've been at a couple of the Monaghan games, the Monaghan Louth game in particular. I'm looking at this super performance by Monaghan in the first half. Of course, the wind was a factor, and it has been a factor right throughout the league, all over the country. But you're looking at this, 15-point plus lead at half time. Monaghan in the second half, it's not a gale by any stretch. It's not something that you can't kick points. From a 15-point lead, Monaghan not doing all that much wrong, and the next thing, the lead's cut down to 3 points, and you're asking yourself, how the hell has that happened, and how has it happened so quickly? So it's making it really interesting. Teams, I think that's a big challenge for the management groups, is that no matter what, they're down at this stage. If it's 10 points, everybody's saying, look guys, we're still in it here. Whereas before, a 10-point lead was really, really hard to overcome. So it just makes it more interesting, and it keeps teams honest. It keeps teams at it, having to stick at it. Momentum's huge in around that middle third. Once you start losing momentum and the crowd gets on top of the, whoever you're playing or wherever the game might be, it's really hard to turn it around. So we're certainly in for an interesting couple of hours on Sunday afternoon. And
the other side of it is that Derry, they're out of the equation. They're league champions. They're now relegated, and they're travelling to play Armagh, who still need something. So it's a complete extreme here, Paul, where, like Paddy Talley had said last weekend, he's already looking forward to the Donegal game as the main focus, whereas Geezer can't even think that way.
He can't. There's two different mindsets, for the respective managers. But I can't help but feel that, Paddy Talley's still going to be looking for a win. If this is his last competitive game before they go to play Donegal, which is only a few weeks away now, these guys have to be looking for something to give them a bit of confidence and to give them something to work on going into the next few weeks of training. You can play all the challenge matches you want and all the training matches, but it's hard to beat getting a game, a competitive game, albeit that they're relegated. But if they were able to go and put in a performance that beats Armagh in Armagh, with Armagh needing a win, I think that puts them into a different mentality going into the next few weeks. Whereas as you say, Armagh, that they're coming in not sure of their position, needing a performance. So I think you'll see, full-blooded effort from Derry. It won't be in any way half-hearted. I don't see Paddy Talley coming in and resting the whole group of his players unless he takes a completely different way of looking at it. But for me, that's the way I see it. That you'd be looking to try and get a win under your belt, and just change that, change the way that the league has gone from. That they've been unlucky. I've heard a few comments, from people that have been at Derry matches. Like, I don't think the supporters are coming down heavy on the players. Like, there's been some good performances that just fell on the wrong side. That they should have been over the line against Kerry. A few other games, just fell the wrong side of the result. So I think they'll drive on, try to get a win this weekend, and build themselves up. But again, it's interesting. We're definitely going to be looking at that game and listening out for a result just to see exactly what's at play.
And then Armagh last weekend went down to Kerry, and the game was probably effectively over at half time. And I know they changed their goalkeeper with Ethan Rafferty versus the extra man type environment, but I was just wondering, was that a factor, or did they just have a flat weekend? And I suppose from that point of view, Paul, they'll be looking not only for the 2 points, but they'll be looking for a response from their own performance, I would imagine. Like, they're all Ireland champions and they're at home.
Yeah, they'll be looking for performances. So we don't know. Like, they put Blaine Hughes in goals. We can see from Monaghan with how they deployed Rory Beggan. We can see from Tyrone, they didn't change tactics. They got those players up the field because they can have an influence. We know that Ethan Rafferty can have an influence when he plays and can get up the field. So I think they could be better served by getting Ethan back in. But it's hard to know. Like, teams, you can definitely have off weekends throughout a National League campaign, and that was probably one of them for Armagh. It's a long trip down to Kerry. It's an overnight. You're coming out against it was a full house at Austin Stack Park, I think. And Kerry were really gunning for them from the off. You could see their attitude was different. They needed to get a win. It was their chance to maybe get them closer to safety. So they were up for the game. So Armagh will long spin back up the road, soul searching as to where they are, asking themselves a few questions going into the last round. So it's not a bad place to be. They're going in. They know that they have to get a result, and there'll be full focus on their training sessions, I'm sure, this week. And you'd be definitely expecting a big turnaround in the level of their performance. We know what they can be like in Armagh. The intensity that they can bring, and the home crowd there as well. It's a great place to play in. When you're playing against Armagh and the crowd are in on top of you, it can be it's not for the faint-hearted.
And the final Division 1 game we'll chat about here is Donegal are away to Mayo. And I was just looking, like, Donegal, I think they had 9 players who started against Derry who weren't even in the 26 last weekend, and like, they were within touching distance of a Tyrone team who were probably in championship mode in terms of needing a win. So this week in the Donegal camp, I was writing about it for this week's Gaelic Life. Does Jim find himself in a brilliant position with his panel now, where essentially he was missing 11 players, and he went out and put in a fairly strong Division 1 performance? Like, that has to be massive.
It is massive, and he's building a really, really impressive squad this season. Jim McGuinness, I know he's talking in the media about being back to year one with all the changes, but look, we all know Jim McGuinness now long enough. He's a brilliant, astute manager, and I can only think that he's really happy about the position that he's in. We know that he's not all gone on heading for a league final, so we can see exactly the tactics in terms of he wanted to solidify his position in Division 1. They've done that with some games to spare, and he's getting an opportunity now to run through a squad. So it's a brilliant position to be in, but I think that they're in a different headspace than where Derry are. But sometimes, championship, when it comes to that white heat, league form can be thrown out the window. Yes, it's good to build confidence in fellas, but the team coming in underneath the radar is also a team to be watching out for. So that's going to be interesting. No matter how this weekend goes, that championship date with Derry and Donegal is going to be an interesting one. So, but you definitely have to be happy if you're Jimmy McGuinness sitting this week. Having looked at the players that he's looked at throughout the league, and if he has a fully fit squad and a fully fit 30 odd players, he's loving life at the moment.
That's all for part one. We'll hear a message from our sponsors, Hastings Hotel, and we're back in part two, and we'll be looking ahead at the rest of the weekend.
Experience hospitality the Northwest way at the Everglades Hotel. Located on the banks of the River Foyle, the Everglades Hotel is just minutes from the centre of Derry, Londonderry, with free on-site guest car parking. Whether you're here for a family meal, a big celebration, or simply a peaceful retreat, will make your experience as memorable as the sights in the city. Visit Everglades Hotel Derry for accommodation bookings, the latest menus, live shows and events, and much, much more. See you there.
Paul, Division 2, Monaghan at home to Down, an all Ulster clash, and as a man inside the Monaghan, the Monaghans, you're probably not inside the bubble in terms of knowing what's going on, but there seems to be something really exciting about Monaghan. That's what it looks like as somebody who's looking on.
Yeah, there definitely is, Michael, and I'm no different. To you, I suppose I am looking in from the outside. I am living here, of course, but as with regards hearing anything on the inside, definitely not. It just doesn't happen. No matter who you are, unless you're in the inner circle yourself or have a job or a role, which I don't. So I'm looking on.
It's probably no bad thing though.
Oh, that's the way it has to be. In any intercounty setup or any good club setup, you don't want to be hearing and every goings on. So that's definitely, Monaghan seem to be a well-run ship at the moment. Gabriel's pulled the management team together that you'd have to be impressed with. Looking at it, Andy Moran's a huge aspect of that, but even the other, the members, guys that I would have played with, like Damien Freeman and Derek McCardle are really, really good fellas. And great to have within that group, and just been real good Monaghan stalwarts down the years, and it's instilling a continuity. That's what Monaghan have been good at, over the last 10, 15, 20 years, is just keeping everybody going, keeping everybody involved. The players that you want, the players that should be playing intercounty football for Monaghan are generally playing, and all, there's nobody that we're sort of missing out on. So it looks like a good, well-run group at the moment, and definitely the Monaghan people and supporters are pretty happy and buoyed by what we've seen so far. Front foot football, everybody's they're playing with great pace, they're playing with great style, a good kicking game, moving the ball fast, everything that you'd want to see, in from a forward aspect. Monaghan are able to are showing that, and showing in spades. But there's still just a piece where we were in Division 1 for so long. We're in a good position to try and get back to Division 1. But where would you be at, playing a Division 1 side like a Kerry or an Armagh, a Donegal, Tyrone? So there's still a couple of wee question marks there. But in terms of what they've had to do since the league started, they've been really, really good, and definitely going into this weekend. So that they need to try and get something out of the game. Down or coming fighting for their lives. So as you say, an all Ulster clash, I'd say anything that's gone before will go out the window, and it'll be a case of who can bring their best on the day. Will come out of it.
And I remember last year, I was doing a few stats. I think Monaghan were the team, in the Sam Maguire competition, who had the most advanced marks. You touched on a kicking game there. They seem to be able to use that very well. And this year, I suppose we're thinking just more immediately to the Meath game, the kings of the 2-pointers. And And even bringing Jack on early, like it seemed to be like a substitution based on the breeze and based on let's get a good lead, because was it 117 or something they had by half time? Like, that's colossal.
It could have been even 120 they put up. Like, so it's been really, really impressive. They did the same against Louth, built up a really big lead with the wind. They didn't actually let it go as much against Meath as they did Louth, you know, as in, you know, Louth came a lot closer than what Meath were able to do at the weekend. But it certainly was a shrewd tactical move to bring Jack in at that point, you know, knowing that what he has in his armory with regards kicking scores from distance. It worked wonders. And look, they're just playing with a team like a team with lots of confidence. You know, Rory Beggin's a huge factor in everything that Monaghan are doing, you know, in every aspect, from kick out time to, you know, getting involved in general play, and then of course, you know, kicking frees and being able to knock over 2-pointers. Like, I've been talking to a few people since the game, and it's happened on a couple of occasions where Monaghan are actually leading in a match. They get an opportunity to kick a ball over the bar from the 20-yard line, but they're actually saying, no, let's take the 2-pointer. And I'm there thinking, lads, why not just take the point here to keep the scoreboard ticking? But it's just the confidence that they have in Rory, the confidence that Rory has in himself. He can bring it back out to the 40-meter line, straight in front of the goals, and he's tapping it over at his ease. So, yeah, confidence is huge, momentum's huge. Monaghan seem to have it you know, on their side at the moment, which, you know, going by what we've seen, you would expect Monaghan to go into to Clonus on Sunday and put a really strong performance together that should be enough to beat a Down team. But, you know, just what's on the table, you know, Down will come with huge fight, and it'll be interesting to see what way Monaghan can deal with that.
Like, Down were down, I think they were down 10 points when they beat Cork, and there was a few games, maybe slightly like there, where there's a couple of games with really good performances, but they came out with nothing. And like, I suppose they just have to come out swinging on Sunday. Like, there's no other way of doing it. If you're Conor Daverty this week, you just have to throw absolutely everything. I suppose like every team that's fighting.
There is no other way for it. But from a Down point of view, you'd have to be encouraged by any team that comes back from 10 points down. And I know you can swing it, you know, quicker in today's game than what you would have been able to do previously, as I talked about earlier. But even just that, never say die, we're never beaten, that mentality and that trait can take you a long way. Like, and if they have that come Sunday afternoon, which you'd have to expect that they haven't lost that. Yes, they've come out the wrong side of a few results and they find themselves in just a position that they'd rather not be in, let's face it. But if they can bring that mentality, they'll definitely give Monaghan serious questions. Whether they'll be able to, you know, stop this Monaghan attack. Like, Monaghan's been putting up big scores, been conceding as well. Like, you know, with 129 to 120 versus a Meath team, you'd expect, you know, Down to be able to they're going to try and put the stops on Stephen O'Hanlon. He's been, you know, one of the main players for Monaghan that's been, you know, causing defenses all sorts of difficulty. Micheál Bannigan the same. You know, they're the two players that Down will have to look to really curb and you know, dampen their what they can do in the game. You know, if Down are to be able to go ahead and cause what you'd have to call an upset. You know, if Down were to come to Clonus this weekend and get a win, you'd definitely, it would be one against the odds. So, but it's not one that I would be, you know, I don't think it's impossible for them coming to get a win just with what's on the line. You know, more on the line for Down than with Monaghan, although Monaghan will feel that they still need something just to get back to Division 1, and I'm sure that's what they'll want to do and take care of business. So lots to play for and a lot of different things to think about. But ultimately, it's about who can come and perform the best on the day, and, you know, bring their best performance. Monaghan have been able to show a really, really strong performance level throughout the league. Down have been sort of coming and going and maybe putting on performing in fits and starts, and maybe that consistency has maybe been lacking. But it's certainly going to be interesting to see how it all plays out.
And your neighbours, Cavan, lost 2, won 4 in a row, and could potentially end up in the promotion shake-up as well. So from losing 2 to winning 4 in a row, that's a huge turnaround for Raymond and the group and the county.
Yeah, it's very impressive from Cavan. Got off to a slow start. Monaghan beat them, I think it
Straight the
was
first
maybe
game.
8 or 9 points in the first game. But maybe you could read too much into that scoreline, with the new rules and 2-pointers, etc. So, yeah, they've been brilliant. They've turned it around. You'd have to expect them to beat Cork at home. I think Cork are probably still playing, in the event of Down getting a win, they probably need to get a win, when it comes to the head-to-head. So they've lost the player for like, but with Cavan, with an opportunity to get back into Division 1 as well, that's going to be a cracker. But you'd have to give credit to Raymond Galligan after a tough start. They've really bounced back and found the winning way, and they've found themselves. So it's an interesting Division 2. Like you have Roscommon, Meath, and Cavan sitting on 8 points. Loud v Meath will be interesting. Cork, yeah. So there's so much to play for in all the divisions, Division 1 and Division 2 particularly, and then Division 3 is going to be interesting as well. Like so. It's as it always does. The last day of the National Football League, can throw up a lot of crazy results and can leave people, very elated in some cases, and then also distraught. On the other hand, at the it just could be a point or two that could cause you to go down or whatever. So, it's certainly going to be interesting.
And Antrim have to go to Kildare and win, and hope that Leitrim beat Sligo, which are two pretty you couldn't see both happening. Like it's a long shot, but I suppose Antrim just have to go and focus on their own side of things.
I think so. I think we talked about it. You just have to go and look after your own. I think heading down to Kildare, them coming off a defeat to Offaly, they're going to be sort of.
They'll want a response as well, Kildare.
Chomping at the bit just to get at it again and to make sure that they get a win at home and to head off into. I think they're still in there's a chance of getting back to Division 2, but heading into Championship, on that sort of better way, better mentality and better, everybody, the morale within the group can always be better with a final day win. It's a difficult few weeks coming for Antrim, like all the chat about Corrigan Park. I believe that they're being unfairly treated myself. If it's a home match for Antrim, it's a home match, and yes, you'd love to have the capacity in the stadium to be able to hold anybody who wants to go. That's just simply not the case. It's not their fault that Casement has ended up in the way it is. So look, it's an unfortunate situation for them, but all they can do is try and concentrate on the Kildare match. Let whatever happens after that happen. And it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. But you'd have to feel for them, the position that they're in at the moment.
And Fermanagh have an outside chance for promotion as well. I think the thing about the final day is, especially in our game in the media, you spend your whole week looking at permutations. So Fermanagh had a shaky enough start and then turned the corner and can still be there. And they've obviously got the championship to look forward to as well. So Kieran Donnelly's got another big weekend ahead of himself.
Yeah, I think so. Like Cavan, Fermanagh have turned it around and have found themselves with some good wins and in a position of difficult circumstances, surrounding their last match with Leitrim not fielding. That's not great. And it's not great for Leitrim. It didn't help Fermanagh out much either. Not having a match, and heading into the last round of the league to play a Laois team. So that's going to be difficult for them to manage, but they'll be well rested if nothing else, and wanting to give it their best on the last day with an outside chance of getting promoted. So, much to play for all the Ulster sides, for various different reasons, and it should be interesting, and it'll following this day next week we'll be talking differently about who landed where and what the prospects are going into the championship.
And very quickly just to finish off, because I know we're both jumping on to other calls here now, but the general risk for Sam, is it more open than ever, or does it come with an asterisk in the fact that the rules leave it completely unpredictable?
Yeah, it's definitely open, and it is a little bit unpredictable. We're very much in the early phase of these new rules, and how they're going to play out at championship time are we going to see much different? I'm just curious on what we're going to see in Croke Park. Like we only got a chance to see, the Interpros, you know, in a very much trial basis. But now, you know, as it comes to the league finals and into championship, you know, that the huge open spaces of Croke Park, like you could be potentially looking at even higher scores than what we've seen at the county grounds throughout the league. So it's certainly going to be interesting. I do believe that there could be more teams. I think that the new rules are suiting the more traditional teams like a Kerry, like a Galway, that, you know, play in that certain style, Dublin as well. So you could see those three, you know, definitely they've never gone away, like, but they're definitely back in the mix. And then you have the Ulster sides in the form of, you know, Tyrone and Armagh, probably, you know, Donegal also. So they're your top three at the minute, as I see it, in Ulster. But yeah, it's pretty open. It's one of 7 or 8 teams could come away with Sam, but we'll know more as we start to see a few championship matches. And of course, injuries always play a huge part, like, in keeping key men on the field. So, you know, that's something that we'll have to watch out for.
The wise man keeps his money in his pocket at this time of year, especially with Derry were National League champions last year and then crashed in the championship. So it'll all become apparent. But I suppose it's from a more general point of view, you're sort of content with where the rules are. And Paul, thanks a million for your time. But I just get the sense you're a man who would love to be standing on the outside of that arc, saying, "Give it out to me and let me ping a 2-pointer here." You just look like that's the sort of. And probably Manzi was the same. Probably people like that just would love this now. So thanks a million for your time, Paul, and catch you down the line.
100%, Michael. Thanks for having me on, and I wish you well.